Hello and welcome to NCBA's Cattlemen to Cattlemen. I'm Kevin Auctioner. Thanks for joining us. The last few years have been a roller coaster ride for cattlemen and women. We've seen market prices rise to record levels and then fall dramatically. That volatility creates uncertainty and stress for all segments of our industry. So what can we expect for 2017 and beyond? Today, we hope to provide some insights while also offering some advice on how to position yourself for the most success. And we have an experienced group of folks with us to share their thoughts on the cattle markets. First, a pleasure to introduce Kevin Good from CattleFacts. Kevin, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Good to be here. Basically, Kevin Good, I'm with CattleFacts. I'm the senior market analyst. On a daily basis, I cover the Kansas feed yard region. As well as that, I'm the manager of our corporate accounts.
Thanks for being with us today.
Thank you.
And Clint Berry comes to us from Superior Livestock. Tell us about your background.
Hi, Kevin. My wife, Jama, and I, we run a small cow-calf operation in southern Missouri, and then I market cattle for Superior Livestock as a representative, primarily specializing in cattle of known genetics, higher quality cattle, higher managed cattle.
Excellent. And also joining us is Larry Hicks from Cattle Hedging. Larry, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I have a company called cattlehedging.com, and this will be 43 years, and what we do is focus on managing risks for livestock producers in the U.S. and Canada. And we try to do a better job of allowing them to kind of look at how to identify their risk parameters and how to actually manage that risk.
Fantastic. Looking forward to hearing from you. And rounding out our panel, we have Don Close from Rabo AgriFinance. Don, tell us about your background.
Hello, Kevin. I'm the senior animal protein analyst with Rabo AgriFinance. That's part of the Food and Agribusiness Research Group that is a team of global analysts around the world.
Fantastic. Well, gentlemen, before I have some hard-hitting questions about the future, let's look backward just a little bit. We've had a bumpy ride, haven't we? And I guess my question is, explain to us the drivers of some of this volatility. Kevin, you want to start?
Well, I think as we look in the rearview mirror, the last couple of years in particular, and you alluded to it, we had record price run up in 2013 and 2014, and then we've had 2 years where we've seen the market drop quite a bit. As you think about the supply side of the market, 2014 at our peak, it was kind of a perfect storm as far as things going right. We had tight beef supplies because of the liquidation we've been through the last 15 years, tight pork and poultry supplies as well. In addition to that, we had very good exports in 2014, so our per capita supplies there were as tight as we'd seen in decades. Now, as you turn the page to 2015 and 16, the opposite is true. We've got increasing supplies of beef, pork, and poultry in 2015. At the same time, exports were lower for all three proteins, so you had the biggest single year increase in per capita supplies we've ever seen in record. So there's no doubt it just wasn't beef, it was all three proteins that suffered. And a continuation of the trend again in 2016. 2016 we produced 3 billion more pounds of total protein compared to 15. But on the positive side, we did see exports start to pick up in 2016 to partially offset that increase in production. But nonetheless, bigger protein supplies with demand that, we can debate whether it's better or a little bit softer, but with bigger supplies, typically it's softer price.
And Don, you work in the finance industry. I guess my question is, did you all anticipate as steep and fast a drop as we experienced?
I don't know that anybody anticipated as fast and as steep as a drop as we have had. With that being said, given the economic environment that loan customers have had to work in, all in all, they've done a pretty good job of just keeping their senses about them. Let's get through this in a well-managed fashion. It's been a tough run.
So what has this impacted, or how has this impacted the industry at large? Larry, do you have thoughts?
I think from a risk management perspective, to tag on what Kevin said, one of the other things that went on for this dramatic volatile up and the volatile down was shift in margins. When the supplies tightened up like Kevin talks about, the producer gets margin, the cow-calf, the rancher, but we squeeze the packer, we squeeze the retailer, and at some point in time we price ourselves out of the marketplace. And as that pendulum swings back down, those margins need to expand again. And that's one of the reasons I think this collapse was steeper and faster because not only was you have this compound increase in supply, you had these margins that had to realign themselves, and they came from extreme levels. And that shift alone made for the dramatic decline in 16.
Kind of felt like shifting the clutch, or shifting the truck without a clutch, didn't it? As we talk about the markets this last fall, I was reading an article that suggested that every potload of calves is worth about $70,000 less than a year ago. That's folding money, Clint Berry. I mean, what's your sense of what things look like for the cow-calf producer in 2017?
Well, I think you've heard the technical side of this and where our supplies are and what our demand looks like. And for a cow-calf producer, we enjoyed a couple of years there beyond our wildest belief. Now we're back to reality, and now it's time that we've got to tighten down our input cost, and we've got to focus on adding as much value, and whether that's using technologies or value-added programs or incorporating better types of beef through our protocols in our own operations. But we've got to find a way to capture as much return on those cattle as we can, because it's just a tougher margin all the way around for every segment.
And you can't squeeze blood out of a turnip, as they say. And so, everybody, including you all, have said, cattle feeders have to make some money before they can afford to spend it on calves. And Don, I guess I'd begin with you. What's the outlook for cattle feeders in the coming year?
Actually, I think cattle feeders are going to be in a much improved environment than they were in 2016. As Clint mentioned, certainly the cattle feeders, the lower price of feeder cattle, the very attractive feed grain prices we were working with, they've had an opportunity to buy inputs at a much more attractive level. You add with that the better than expected rally we've seen in the futures market post-October has actually offered some very attractive hedge opportunities for producers.
Larry, Kevin, what would you add?
Well, I think that's spot on. One thing I would suggest too, as you think about it, there's three factors that we look at as far as cattle feeding, getting in current, and also the market being an overachiever. And as you think about where we're at today, cattle are making money that are leaving the feed yard. That's positive. You also have a big discount in the deferred futures. That's positive because it tells the cattle feeder to continue to market cattle. And also we're buying a break even on feeder cattle that's $10 plus lower than the cattle we're selling out of the feed yard today, a positive swap. And typically when those three factors line up, Kevin, you typically pull cattle forward, market at lighter weights, you become more current, you have more leverage compared to the packing segment, and the market typically is an overachiever, and cattle feeder typically stays profitable longer as we go through the year. So we're pretty optimistic that 2017 will be a plus year for the cattle feeder.
You agree, Larry?
Well, I'd like to add, we've taken retail beef as a percent of retail pork from almost 200% to less now. We've realigned some of this competitive side with the pork side, and I think that's helpful. I think retail prices beef are still going to have to come lower, and as it comes lower, we're going to have to see still with this increased production for 2017 some lower prices, but the margins have changed. This big collapse of our consolidation of the retail margins, the packer margins, is now going to reduce the risk, I think, with respect to the margins for the feedlot. Who's going to have more of a challenge is cow, calf, and rancher. Is we still need to get those prices down to where the cattle feeders lost a lot of equity this last couple of years.
He's got to regain
so
some
he's
of
got
that.
to. He's going to be a lot more cautious about what he pays for that replacement animal.
Let's talk quickly about the fundamentals of beef demand. I mean, do you believe that we have strong beef demand? Kevin?
I'll kick that off, and as you look at the academic part of demand, it's just quantity times price.
Yep.
And if you did that for 2016, for example, all fresh retail prices were down 6%, and per capita beef supplies were up 3%. So if you do the math there, that would tell you that beef demand was down about 3%. And so if you look at beef demand, I think you also have to recognize, and Larry makes some very good points about the price structure between us and the other proteins. We have been expensive compared to both pork and poultry. That is coming down some. So if you look at demand in different aspects, right now we're seeing more featuring, and the featured price for beef in 2016 was down 10%, not the 5 to 6% that all fresh was. So you can see the retailers seeing the advantage of featuring beef at a bigger discount to get the consumer in. You can also see some differences between the product side. The rib and the loin, the middles, choice and above steak items have gotten along extremely well. They've held their value together better than the chuck and the round and the grind as we think about 2016. So if we look at it from the long haul, yeah, demand from an academic standpoint is probably down some, but at the same time, there's some bright spots out there for demand.
Larry?
I'd like to add to that. One of the things I think I noticed and watched the summer of 2014, but by Labor Day of 2014, we had priced ourselves out of the marketplace in the beef, okay? And I think that's, a lot of people talk, well, demand was really good then, but really if we compare it to the elasticity of demand, I think the retailer overshot elasticity. And so instead of what people interpreted as good demand, I think we weaned demand. I think we took and weaned that demand away, and that made the consequences of 2015 and 2016 more significant because we weaned that demand away.
That's interesting. Great discussion, and we're going to dig a little deeper into this important topic throughout our program today. Now, if you want to keep up on all the latest news in the cattle industry, just visit NCBA's website, that's beefusa.org. And for more expert analysis on the cattle market, be sure to visit cattlefacts.com.